System-level triggers. System-level triggers can be created to monitor events on schema or database objects. Schema-level triggers are fired when an event monitored for a user occurs. Database-level triggers are fired when an event monitored for all users occurs. The monitored event may include DDL statements or database operational events. The database operational events could be when the database shuts down or starts up. Database-level triggers. Database triggers are typically used by database administrators for change management within an Oracle environment. They capture relevant information about changes to objects made by DDL statements. This information could include DDL statement date, the user ID of issuer, the type of the object's name and the object's owner. Event attribute functions are used to retrieve this information from the Oracle server. Event attribute functions. Event attribute functions are used to retrieve information about system objects from the Oracle server. These functions can be used by triggers to return attributes of objects on which a DDL operation occurred. Some of the functions include: Aura database name returns the database name. Aura dict obj name returns the name of the object. Aura dict obj owner returns the owner of the object. Aura dict obj type returns the type of object. Aura login user returns the username of issuer. Aura sys event returns the event name or DDL statement syntax. The following example demonstrates how system triggers can be used to capture useful information about database objects changed by DDL statements. The information is stored in a table called change log. In this example, a table called change log is created. It will be used by the trigger to store all relevant information about DDL statements which change the database. Next, an after database trigger called DDL trigger is created with a create statement. The after clause of the trigger states that the trigger will fire after all DDL statements. This is the trigger specification. The trigger body begins with the begin keyword and ends with end. The trigger body is executed after every DDL statement. It inserts the statement properties into the change log table. It uses the event attribute functions to retrieve these values from system tables. Next, the trigger is tested by executing DDL statements. A table called student is created and dropped. One function and a procedure are dropped. The change log table is then queried to see if these changes have been captured. The query result shows all the attributes of the executed DDL statements have been captured. This proves that the trigger is working as expected. Schema-level triggers. Schema-level triggers fire when schema-level events occur. These events are also known as user-level events. While database-level triggers are fired for all users, schema-level triggers are fired for a specific user event. Some events monitored by schema-level triggers include DDL statements, user log-on log-off and other server error events. System triggers can be defined at database and schema level. When a trigger is defined at both levels, the schema level trigger fires before the database level trigger. The following example creates a schema level before trigger called prevent drop. It prevents the deletion of a new table called student in the HR schema. A schema level before trigger called prevent drop is created. The trigger could fire when a drop statement is executed on an object in the HR schema. The exact type of object drop which fires the trigger must be stated within the trigger body. The trigger declares an error message variable. This variable uses event attribute functions to return information about the dropped object. The functions return the object schema name, the object's name and the triggering statement. The trigger body uses event attribute functions and a conditional expression. The expression identifies the exact object which fires the trigger. The trigger is fired if the expression evaluates to true. The conditional states that if the object owner is HR, and the object name is student, and the object type is a table, then raise an exception before the drop statement is executed. The exception will print out the error message variable, The trigger is tested by creating the student table. Then an attempt is made to drop the table. The trigger fires. It raises the exception, preventing the execution of the drop statement on the student table.